Alhamdulillah. I think obviously the top of the list will be the elections, the gubernatorial elections holding in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo states.
It's currently ongoing, and we've started getting different reports from the state. Ordinarily, we know it's an off-cycle election, and so we have 3 states where their governors are being, so we have 3 governors to be elected. So we have that of Kogi. Governor Yabelo's tenure is actually ending. So we also have in Imo State, where Governor Hope Uzodinma, his tenure would also come to an end. The so-called Supreme Court governor. And we also have in Bayelsa State, Governor Doyediri, his own tenure is also coming to an end. So he's contesting for his second term, just like Governor Hope Uzodinma. And the reality is both of them are Supreme Court governors. So but it's only funny how selective the media and politicians have actually, zeroed in on just Governor Hope Uzodinma, giving him the appellation of Supreme Court governor. You also recollect that in Bayelsa State, actually, Mr. David Leon of the APC actually won the election, but then the election was nullified on the grounds that his running mate had issues of falsification, probably, or issues with his certificate. That there are different names. He used different names, for different certificates that he submitted to INEC. So on that basis, his candidature was nullified, and that had direct impact on because it was a joint ticket with David Leon. And this was someone that was preparing to be sworn in for a day to the swearing in. He still went there. Yes, he went for the mock parade at the grounds where the swearing in will take place, only for the Supreme Court in the evening to invalidate that election on account of the issue of his running mate. And that was how Governor Doyediri became the governor. Someone who lost in the election. But a lot of people are not looking at that. But a lot of people, only put attention on Governor Hope Uzodinma. Because as at that time, you have APC administration, not popular in the Southeast. Right. Then he was the only person. And you had a PDP governor that was actually, thrown out of office. And the reason being that they said, from 4th, how did the 4th emerge as the first in the election? Forgetting the fact that he contested results that INEC failed to reckon with. And the results of those polling units, over 300 of them, the INEC did not provide a basis for rejecting the results of those polls. And he came up with the result that these were the scores I scored. And he did not count it as part of it. So at the end of the day, the Supreme Court felt that no, INEC has no defense for rejecting those results, and they collated those results, added it to the score that he already had. So that moved him from the 4th to actually the first, and that was how he became governor. But a lot of Nigerians, we are selective, and for the fact that probably it's someone that they don't like, it's also the party they don't like. So at the end of the day, the appellation of Supreme Court governor just got attached to him like that, like a leech, and that did not go away. So but then he has also been unpopular because of the fact that he's supporting an administration that was actually fighting, so to say, IPOP. And then so a lot of the military activities that actually went on in Imo State, many of the citizens were dissatisfied with that. So on that basis, some of them have been saying that he will not come back. And for the fact that they felt that they actually not tolerated the opposition enough, especially now going by what later happened to people like Ajero and even Umar Gochinyere, an honorable who used to actually chair is a PDP person, now who was more like the chief opposition to Governor Hope. So a lot of those things happen. And in Kogi State, you have Yahya Bello, that the way he played, his politics in Kogi State, in fact, he really frustrated opposition to a large extent. And even for his own party, he did not allow other people to contest because he had an anointed candidate. And the anointed candidate is also from his own senatorial district, probably even from his local government. Some are even saying probably he's even his cousin or something like that. So they were saying, no, we are saying no to third term in Kogi State of Governor Yahya Bello. And for the fact that you now have people like Natasha Akpoti, who in the last election, Governor Yahya Bello went to areas in Kogi Central, especially where those areas perceived to be her stronghold. and even cut off the road so the INEC would not have access to it. But eventually, one way or the other, she was still eventually declared the winner by the appeal court, and she has been sworn in as a senator for that. So now you now have Senator Dino Milai now as the candidate of the PDP. So you have Usman Ododo, the candidate of the APC, the anointed candidate of Governor Yaya Bello. So even members of the APC who felt disgruntled by the way the primary and every other thing went. So you have Eleke Abejide, who now left the APC to go to ADC. Now, who a lot of people believe is actually being sponsored by James Faleke, Honorable James Faleke of Lagos, who was the running mate to Audu Abubakar that died, whose ticket eventually Yaya Bello rode on to become the governor. Okay. So he doesn't have the support there. Then you also have a third force in person of Alhaji Murtala Ajaka, who is there is this other party, I've forgotten just now. So this other one, in fact, there had been attacks on Ajaka's convoy during the campaigns. So a lot of people felt that, is Yaya Bello afraid of Murtala Ajaka? So as far as that election is concerned, so you now have like a 4-horse race that you cannot say this is exactly where the ascendancy is on for the PDP because of Akpoti's recent victory at the tribunal, at the appeal court. So people are saying that, will that give a lot of support and impetus to the supporters of Senator Dino Milai?
Right. Are we getting any feelers? The normal things at Trail Island.
Yeah.
Are we seeing things like that already?
Yes, we are seeing things like in Bayelsa State. We have a case of a boat conveying electoral materials and officials over INEC to Southern Niger local government. Actually, the boat capsized. But luckily, they were able to save the driver of the boat and all the officials. But the materials, their batteries, everything in the water, gone. So how we don't know now if INEC would be able to recover and send replacement to that particular local government. We don't know. So that's as far as it. And we also got feelers.
Yet?
Well, we've actually had reports of attacks. The reality is those 3 states, feelers are already on ground that that this is recipe of we have candidates who have promised hell on those who probably will not allow them hold sway. So you have in the case of Bayelsa State, the running mate to former governor Timipre Silva, who is the candidate of the APC, is saying that if they try to do nonsense, if they try to probably, attack you or try to do hanky-panky as far as this election is concerned, push them inside the river, let them die. This is not and it won't be the first time. And this was a former militant leader who actually had come out to say that he actually broke from jail. Yeah. That's the running mate of Timipre Silva, a former militant leader. Seriously. You have that. You have the sitting governor who said, well, I'm a gentle person. But people are saying, how gentle are you? For the fact that you got there by luck, and you also have, so to say, although not a third force per se, but the Labour Party, a former president of the National Youth Council, Denks Eradiri, who is also a third force. So people are already saying that with the rhetoric coming from the APC, are feeling that probably the PDP would want to use the power of incumbency against them, and that they give them fight for fight. So you have, and ordinarily, if you know the nature of Bayelsa State, because a lot of these people, they are militants and they use militants when it comes to election. So you already have grounds for violence. In the case of Kogi, now you have a Yaya Bello, the lion, as he calls himself, so to say. Then, against a Dino Milai, who said, we'll give them fight for fights. We see, Dino Milai, to his rhetorics, the kind of person that he is, and the way he comes out as someone that is, very, very, cantankerous. Let me put it that way. So, most likely, that would also be violent. If you also recollected how Governor Yaya Bello won his re-election, and the way they were singing that, we'll give them. Because even PDP that brought in Sunday Igboho then, during the re-election of Yaya Bello, that Governor Makinde took to Kogi State, that was gone violent. Remember that the women leader of the PDP one of the women leaders of PDP in Kogi State was killed during that re-election period for Yaya Bello. Now you now have Yaya Bello now who wants his own anointed candidate to be there. So now, but the police have talked tough. They are saying that, see, anybody who actually wants to turn his own family members to an orphan, let him attempt that. So we want to see. And because there have been so much deployment of policemen, because this is off-cycle election, so you can afford to send as many policemen as possible to these areas. But the question is, will they also be armed to be able to protect the voters against any of these people, these thugs that might want to assault them or that might want to hijack any ballot box? Because the CDS said, hijack the ballot box and you probably, you lose your life.
Right.
That was what the CDS said. So, and in the case of Imo, that one too is also fact. I'm afraid, I am very sure, see, these 3 states there will be violence. That's just the truth. Because the violence, a lot of times, people want to blame INEC. It is not INEC that is perpetrating violence. INEC is the umpire. But then, the problem is actually with the politicians.
And the people. The politicians won't succeed if the people don't
allow themselves to be used. That is it. So the reality is there are some people say, you see, but at the same time, you also must realize the fact that the political elites have actually impoverished the people so much that with any amount of money, they can actually, move a mountain for them just to survive.
Right.
So it has got to that level.
Speaking of Imo State and the Ajero assault, NLC is declaring a nationwide strike, and the industrial court has barred Labour from carrying on with the strike. Where do we go from here?
Well, it remains to be seen where we go, because I find it very, very ridiculous and irresponsible on the part of Labour that you decided to now actually go to Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja to picket the airport, disrupting flights. Please, for goodness sake, who exactly do you have grouse with?
Affecting the livelihood of
the life and livelihood of the people that have no bearing whatsoever with the assault. Now, see, this thing happened in Imo, and you try to go to Abuja to picket the airport.
Perhaps they feel that's where they can get the attention, the necessary attention.
But what kind of attention are you looking for? What kind of attention are you looking for? And who are the victims? And how do you, now, how do you compensate those whose flights have been affected? Probably those are actually supposed to actually travel out of this country. Probably they are going for conference, they are paid. Look at the cost of airfares. Imagine after paying all that, and at the end of the day, this is what you get. You get stranded at the airport. Then at the end of the day, the airlines will tell you, force majeure. So at the end of the day, we can't refund anybody. So you probably have to pay another money for you to get another ticket. Right. What if you actually don't even meet up with what you're supposed to go for? Who compensates you? That's the responsibility we're talking about. Then again, if you're saying that, yes, Ajero is one person. Right. Nobody is saying that the assault on Ajero is warranted. That's very, very irresponsible for whoever. And I love the fact that the IGP has stepped in. That is a probe in it. Because at the end of the day, see, the police are saying one thing. NLC is saying another thing. Ajero himself came out yesterday to actually break his silence, to say that he was actually taken by the police and handed over to the thugs. So invariably, that has shown that it was not the police that assaulted him that way.
In their custody, because they claim he was in the police custody.
They said, the police said they took him into protective custody after he was assaulted by some people. On the part of the police, you also say that there is a level of irresponsibility, because you actually did not come out to tell us if at all you have arrested any of those people that assaulted him. Because if you rescued him from those that assaulted him, so you should have arrested some of those people responsible for that assault. That's number one. Now, number two is not the fact that it shows quite well, even from Ajero's statement now, that it was not exactly the police that assaulted him. But now he has indicted the police to say that a police officer, a senior officer for that matter, was the one that arrested him and handed him over to thugs. So Ajero needs to identify the police officer responsible. Now, NLC took action. that they gave the government a deadline that if you don't meet up with this deadline, at least one of their demand is that they must actually redeploy the police commissioner in Imo State. That has been done. The IG said, I'm doing that for the neutrality of the election, because this is election period. You cannot afford to allow that to affect. So this election period, even for neutrality's sake, okay, I'm redeploying this police officer. So pending when investigation will be done and the results will come out before we can say whether or not the commissioner of police was actually probably guilty or culpable of whatever happens to Ajero. Now it's Ajero's words against the police. So it's for him to actually come up with his own witnesses and things like that. So you have that. Now, Ajero, you're saying that you're actually carrying out protests on behalf of workers in Imo. You're claiming that probably they have not been paid and things like that. And the governor came out to say that, see, anybody that has not been paid as a civil servant in Imo State should come out. That he has been up to date with this payment. Yeah, you'll say that, oh, some people have not received their pension. The governor said he's not owing anybody pension. Except if some of those pensions that have been backlogs. And that you cannot hold him totally responsible for that. That he is trying as much. He inherited the backlog. He will just try as much as well to clear for as much as he could.
Right.
But so if you actually don't hold those governors that all those backlogs responsible, why then pin it on him? But you would say that governance is a continuum. That you inherit both the assets and the liabilities. Fine. But then, is this how to now go about it?
To shut down Abuja.
Now, the governor is now accusing Ajero of partisanship. That because, and see, there is no way Ajero can wash himself out of this. He's saying that, yeah, he's not a member of the Labour Party. But he came out to say that NLC is the father of the Labour Party. So it is their own party and they will do everything. So for that, he also showed his partisanship in the presidential election. He showed his partisanship on the May Day by criticizing the government, criticizing the election, criticizing the outcome of the election just because he did not go his way. No, he mentioned all those. So for him to now think that he can backtrack as if we are fools or probably we have forgotten. We have not forgotten some of those comments that he made at that point in time. But what we are saying is there is no justification for anybody to actually have assaulted him that way. But then, on what basis? The same NLC that did not go on strike for the National Assembly members that actually bought 160 million naira vehicles for each person. The same Ajero that did not call out the NLC and the Labour Union to protest against the supplementary budget that was signed by the president, including yacht, including renovation of Aso Rock Villa, including the buying of vehicles, purchase of 1.5 billion worth of vehicles for the office of the First Lady that is unconstitutional. He did not bring out Nigerian workers for that. He did not bring out Nigerian workers to demonstrate against the devaluation of the naira, the way naira has actually been losing its value. Free fall of the naira. He did not do that. So, just because of an election in Imo State. And how emotionally intelligent are you that at this particular point, some days to election, that was when you now chose to actually lead a protest in Imo State. And at that point in time, we also recognize the fact that, see, the NLC in Imo State is already factionalized. So, have you worked on resolving the issue of the factions before now embarking on saying that you want to bring out the workers for them to embark on a strike? Now you now decide to ground all airlines going into Imo State. You said you declared the governor persona non grata. All these things are actually preemptive as far as I am concerned, and that one way or the other, even if you pin it's your words against his now. So now you are blaming the governor for the assault on you. And as far as I am concerned, that is preemptive too, because you cannot be a judge in your own case. You can make accusation. It's for you to prove your case. So if there is any case, why not actually sue the police commissioner and every other people that you think had knowledge of your assault to court, than for you to now decide to now ground Nigeria. And luckily, the National Industrial Court had now said that because the one that we saw was that of Imo State, but they now took it to Abuja. That was why I said it was irresponsible on their part. Now they now decided to call out the whole of Nigeria because of the assault on Joe Ajero. So the economy can afford to go down because of the assault on Labour leader. And I think that, for me, shutting down the country because of the assault on our leader, because he's also a member of the union. I'm a member of the NLC because my union is affiliated to it. So calling out all the union and the affiliates of the union because of that, I also don't think that's the right way to go. So But the court has stepped in. It now remains to be seen if at all Labour would obey the court orders.
Right. As we're out of time, unfortunately, but let's quickly touch on OU. I think OU has been in the news recently more negatively than positively. First was the EFCC and the students, the raid, and now it's they're coming out to apologize for the lecturer's assault on students.
There was a case of a student who entered into a class. They said he actually missed, thought that was his class. The lecturer was already in class, and the lecturer was actually taking his, the class. So he now felt that, oh, sorry, I think this is a case of a wrong class that I entered. This is not supposed to be a class that I probably had to go, and decided to probably go, and the lecturer called him out, something like that. I think the student decided to probably bring out his phone to record, the conversation or something like that. And I think at that juncture, the lecturer said, let me have the phone, and probably was not ready to read. And one way or the other, I think we had a case of, it was alleged that the lecturer punched, the student, and before you know it, we went viral and what have you. So the university authorities have actually apologized for that action of the lecturer, because that's not, regardless. I think the lecturer, has the issue of that might probably be issue of anger management or self-control. So that's one thing of the, on its own. And as a lecturer, you are in the eye of the public. So the way you conduct yourself and the way you react to situation matters. And for that fact, I think the university authority has done probably the needful by first even apologizing on behalf of that lecturer, while I'm sure investigation will probably, be ongoing to unravel what really happened, how did it go, and why did the lecturer take such an action. There could be disciplinary, actions taken against the lecturer eventually, one way or the other. But then the probe would also probably reveal if at all the student too is culpable of one or two things, regardless. But then I think too that Nigerians will also need to probably learn this lesson. There is a way by which we really need. Then when things happen, the first thing, this phone thing, it's something that we really need to look at. But at the same time too, as individuals, say, regardless of the way we react to situation matters a lot. That is very, very key. And it's also a function of this mental health thing that we always talk about. It's not until probably someone goes to the market and runs into, amok, that you see probably the person. See, mental health issues are real. Some is actually out of frustration, economic, with the economic challenges in the country and things like that. So I saw that the next thing, we spark when, something very, very, trivial. So, that doesn't worth the kind of reaction. So these are things that we really need to check. And the government also needs to help the citizens. The frustration and the level of hardship is too much. And these are some of the things that you see as a reaction, to prevalent economic situations in the country. So really need to help our people, because see, it's almost everybody that is on the edge now, probably except the political elites, because they are not feeling what we are feeling.
Unfortunately, and we just leave it off at the Israeli doorstep, where we look at the Gaza and West Bank, what's going on there. We just have a minute if we can. Just let's touch base.
Let me start this way.
The constant bombardment, the
irresponsibility on the part of the Israeli government.
And the world powers.
The world powers, really. See, the thing is, you look at it, and someone will tell you that cutting off, just like the European Union President Ursula von der Leyen said, that accused Russia of committing war crimes by cutting off, fuel, energy supply to, Ukraine, calling it a war crime. But then, in the same vein, you are actually giving, a thumbs up to Netanyahu for doing the same or worse in Gaza. Now, see, we're talking about the fact that the same U.S. government during the week was challenged that, would you say that what is going on in Gaza? Yes. Now, Max Blumenthal actually challenged, the State House, correspondent who was trying to brief on what was going on, saying that the U.S. has actually secured, 4-hour polls and things. I see that. Do you not recognize that this is ethnic cleansing? That you have displaced more than 80% of Palestinians away from their lands, from their homes in Gaza. One. Number two is that you're bombing hospitals. Two, you're talking about the fact that In the same way, the same way you people criticize Russia for invading Ukraine and cutting off, all access to humanitarian needs. That is the same thing that is going on in Gaza. You said where it was actually Hamas that actually caused it first. The reality is that, so if, let us even assume it is true, because it's not true, but then let us even assume it is true. So if you say that if a terrorist runs into a hospital and you have people, innocent people that are being treated for different ailments and things like that are there because of one person, so the next thing is you level the entire hospital. Is that not craziness? Is that not irresponsible? Is that not a war crime? Then for you to now also consider the fact that the UN Secretary General said Gaza is now an open graveyard, and for that reason Israel is still saying that the man does not know what he's saying, or that even look, for you to know how terrible it is, just this week again the Russian government, through its representative in the United Nations Security Council, tried to actually call for a ceasefire. Now, all the members of the Security Council voted for the ceasefire, except for the United States, who vetoed it. Yeah. Now, what does that tell us? That you're saying you can go ahead and kill for as much as you care. And on the other side, you're now trying to say, oh, we are also trying to push for humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. Does it make any sense? But then, what are we talking about? The same, now, a lot of people will now say, this. If you look at what is going on in the press, the mainstream media is actually culpable as far as what is going on is concerned. Now, you have the Israeli government saying that they would only allow, now they have only allowed two news organizations, CNN and the ABC News in the US, that they will allow them actually have an idea of what is going on, the operations in Gaza. And what did they say? They now said that the only thing is, when you do that, we must censor what you are, what you have before you can actually go public. Now, do you call that journalism or propaganda? That's PR. That's not journalism. Journalism is you say it the way it is, regardless of who is affected by it. But this time around, say no, and at the end of the day, they accepted, while others they said no. No, if you want journalism, that in the same Ashifa hospital now, the biggest, that is where the concentration of the Israeli government is. Now, you have 41 journalists already killed. Now, that was this case, the one that happened on Friday was very, very terrible. A journalist whose leg was cut off because of the nature of the weapons that was being used.
Yes, because I understand after bombing, people that were running out of the hospital to seek refuge somewhere else, they were actually then being stormed by this missile. And when it lands, it has a sharp object.
It cuts off. See, it amputates. See, that was this particular journalist, that video. See, the truth is, if you really want the reality of what is going on as far as this war is concerned, don't listen to any mainstream media. Go to the internet, go on Twitter. You would see live feeds of what is going on, because Israel has actually blockaded and caused a communication blackout as far as the enclave is concerned. So our own is that, see, it is the turn of Palestinians this time around, and the victims are the ones being called terrorists. Remember that was the same way South Africans were called terrorists for opposing apartheid. Yeah. In South Africa. Now the victims are being called terrorists. So in the same vein, I hope that when it probably gets to our turn, the same way you feel that it's not your concern and it's none of your business, probably because the aggressor is the part that you support. Now when it probably comes to your turn, don't feel dejected if probably the rest of the world also looks away, because might is right in their own definition. And it has shown that, see, all these so-called humanitarian records and things like that the so-called Western world, mounts, is nothing but a farce. It's nothing but a farce. So if you are looking towards righteousness, please look far away from the Western world, because it is nothing but hypocrisy and double standards. And you cannot get justice. And for the whole world, there can never be peace without justice. For us to have peace, there must be justice to all parties concerned.
Thank you so much, Dr. OLUBUNMI. We'll see you same time next week. That's how far we can go on the show today. The other woman is up next. Stay with us.